we're seeking today means as to why we're living and what the purposes of life are.
When we look at the world, we see the colors of nature. For instance, a green tree. But the scene containing that green tree does not appear the same in morning light as it does at high noon, or during a sunset, or on a gray day. So the colors that we see are determined by the light and atmospheric conditions at that particular moment. It is believed our ancestors first made representations of reality simply with the use of an outline. As they looked longer at nature, they saw more, and added their findings to their pictures by filling in the outline, creating a flat silhouette. They found they could create a greater illusion of form by making tonal variations in the silhouette. Use of the outline continued, and in people like Hokusai in the Orient and Holbein in Europe, it reached a high level of development. The illusion of depth in paintings was first provided by linear perspective. These early examples appear archaic to us because of the lack of a corresponding atmospheric perspective, was eventually produced by varying the flat colors used to show the sky and the ground in the same way that the cavemen had varied the flat silhouette of animals to show roundness. The science of anatomy helped to make the human figures in paintings more believable. It was Leonardo da Vinci who brought the art to its zenith with his Mona Lisa. The means by which he created the illusion of solidity in the portrait and depth in the background's landscape are completely hidden from us because his tonal transitions are so minute. His complete understanding of human anatomy and a deep sympathetic feeling for the traits of the woman are the foundations for this beautiful portrait. The next major step in man's visual perceptual growth happened around 1860. It was made possible because of an invention by science of a multitude of brightly colored pigments available in portable tubes. Before 1860, painters had to rely on a very few dingy and subdued colors. Having never before existed, who was there to teach young painters the use of these pigments? Claude Monet and the rest of the Impressionists decided to teach themselves. Landscape painting, as a high art form, had begun previous to Monet, when the Englishman, John Constable, became the first painter to work continuously out of doors. He saw the local colors of things, the blue sky, the green grass and trees, the white clouds, and he knew he had to paint them differently than his predecessors had done in their dark studios. Constable saw colors, yes, but he did not understand, as Turner did, the importance of light and atmosphere in nature, and the dramatic effect their portrayal had in paintings. Monet, understanding Turner's awareness of light and atmosphere, following Constable's example of painting out of doors, and armed with the new, brighter pigment, spent the rest of his life showing us how the color of a particular object is perceived according to the different light and atmospheric conditions of nature at that time. Charles Webster Hawthorne founded the Cape School of Art in Provincetown, Massachusetts in 1899. After much historical analysis, he invented a teaching method that makes the student aware of the light and how to transfer the light's harmonies to their paintings. Beginning students start out of doors, studying how light and atmosphere affects the colors of simple shaped objects. This painting was done indoors by a master painter. The indoor light key is more subdued than outdoors, but the procedure of painting remains the same indoors or out, portrait, landscape, or still life. We start by using a painting knife to apply spots of color to a gessoed masonite board, a spot for the lighted side of each object, one for its shaded side, one for each cast shadow, one for the four in the background, determined by the characteristic color differences corresponding to what we are looking at. This method, invented by Hawthorne, is exactly the opposite of the ancients, who started with the outline and then filled it in with color. But what is an outline, really, except a contrivance to show where two colors come together in nature? We cover the board with these large spots, leaving a space between them, so that further change of color can be done in each of them without slopping one into the other. No attention is paid to small details or the edges of objects. The only drawing is to make each color spot its appropriate size and shape. At the end of many of these starts, the student, no longer a beginner, is ready to find and paint the spots that represent the halftones between light and shade. This gives a greater feeling of form to objects and a softness to the edges of cast shadows. After this is accomplished, the search narrows to within each large spot to find the most obvious colors that represent the form and the plane changes of what we are looking at. After the most obvious color changes are found and painted, we continue finding smaller and smaller ones. This logic of seeing and painting can be learned from someone who has solved the problems themselves. To be able to see and paint the edges of objects correctly, with the understanding that the same color spot, no matter how small, cannot logically occur twice in the same painting, does not come overnight. Charles Hawthorne, until his death in 1930, taught this science to people who were interested. Since 1930, Henry Hensche has faithfully kept the ideas alive for those who want to know how to see beautifully.
Well, if you're interested in the art of painting, it's not very difficult to comprehend. It's the art of seeing, and the way you see things is the way a painter creates the illusion of reality. What a painter does is simply make it his business to see more accurately and more precisely than the layman. When you're dealing with the human being, wherever there's human affection, there portraiture will last and exist, because everybody that lives wants images of those they love. That's why portraiture is done. And for that reason, people buy pictures, they buy paintings, they want them around because a painter has taught himself to see more beautifully or truly, which is the same thing. And through the painting, people begin to see nature. Seeing is a process of having an image come on the retina. Then the mind analyzes what comes on the retina. It's the mind's analysis and the quality of that analysis that makes the difference between a good painting and a bad painting, or an erratic one. Now, the art of translating that is, what you see visually, is you have to learn. That's what they call the physical aspect of it. But the real thing is the learning of seeing and understanding what you're looking at. And that's an analytical process. Painting is the logic of seeing, in other words.
See, when it comes to painting, as people have watched this thing, see, I'll start from with blotches next to each other of proportional differences, and then I make the rough overstatement of the color note of each area, and then I get the general units really well, then I push them into a shape a little bit more accurately, in a rough pattern of it.
If you were born without a color sense, so the old painters used to say, you never could acquire it. And they assumed there was no science of producing this sense. Well, it wasn't until my teacher Hawthorne came along and solved that problem once and for all. In this sense, Hawthorne was the greatest progressive painting teacher in the world. He made a technique of teaching first himself and then through the method teaching others to do what the Impressionist movement had done, that is Monet especially. What had Monet done? Well, he revolutionized the art of seeing. When Monet came along with the new colors that were added by modern chemistry in 1860, accessible to the painters in tubes roughly around between 1860 and 70, then so-called Impressionism was born. Monet now had the pigments to express many more color combinations, especially bright ones. And he simply applied the use of these colors to expressing the greater variety of color effects that everybody had seen, but nobody had been able to create the illusion of. And this is the core of why Impressionism has come into existence. Monet couldn't have happened until the 20th century, when modern chemistry added the new pigments. The ancients couldn't if they wanted to.
Students would keep studying the units of an atom until they are so accurate that they tell the onlooker, the layman, or anyone who looks at it, at the study, that it's that light effect. In other words, we're trying to get a morning sunlight effect here. And that's done by the units of the color being reasonably accurate. Because once you understand this, you realize that the units are a more important thing. It's the beginning and the end of things. Hawthorne said, in the beginning, as a student, you make the units crudely because you don't know anything else. As you get more knowing, you spend a lifetime elaborating the variations and drawing and concepts of ideas and composition ideas. But in the end, it's all said and done. Like I said, you don't look at a picture unless from a distance it stops you through its main masses. So if you lose it, it's like any idea. If you lose the central theme of an idea and lose yourself in the details and lose the sight of the big concept of whatever it may be, in painting it's the big color note.
The finer painter simply raises his or her visual perceptual sense to a very much higher order than the ordinary one. So this gives you a clue too to the function of a painter in society. His main function is, first of all, to teach people how to see the visual beauty and truth of the visual world. That's his basic function. And it's done through colors, through color combinations of different intensities and depths in a certain color scheme that creates the illusion of reality. And when it's on a high level, then, and above their experience, then man uses these descriptive words like beauty and aesthetic and quality and so forth. There's no great painting, no fine painting that hasn't got a great color quality.
Here is the idea that Hawthorne thought, that the sum total of the masses in color should express the light key in which things are seen. He solved the problem of how to develop color sensations from crude sensations to one of great refinement. Hawthorne respected anyone that wanted to study the truth and the beauty of life, of things. He thought it was the most wonderful thing to pursue, to add to the sum total of beauty of the world. So what you do is you start in the beginning of your life with the crude masses and make endless studies until those masses express the fundamental truth. He not only made you feel that you were just as important as anybody else, but you had to earn it, you had to study. And he was also very kind about understanding human beings. He didn't judge you by your immediate studies. He judged you by the rate of growth you made. They learned something about, as Hawthorne said, glory of the visual world.
You will learn something.
Yes. And the reason for that is the theory. The teaching principle is right. And so, in other words, he was a true American if you believe this is not the age for the few rich, for the few endowed with money. This is a royalist, feudalic concept that only a few are chosen to be the great painters of the world. He felt that everybody is endowed with possibilities of growth. And each one that wants to pay the price was to have the right for that development to the fullest of their being. And everybody could and can. So he drew through class lines. And he didn't think it was just for the few, it was for the many, for everyone who wanted it. And who is there to restrict anybody in saying that they don't want what is beautiful and good? Who doesn't want a good picture? Who doesn't want to understand the use of it? Who doesn't want to practice some art form? It's the development of their sensories, and that makes the difference between animals and human beings. This is another quality that man had, and you felt it. And believe me, they loved him for it, you see, because he opened up vistas.
Hawthorne, my teacher, put that up in a teaching form, but more than he did in practice, so that everybody can learn to grow, to appreciate the quantity and quality of color sensations.
Then you have the function, you see, it gives the people looking at it a visual experience that they wouldn't get without the help of the painter. And then through looking at the painting, they'll transfer that experience into visual observation, and then through it they'll learn to see nature more attractively and more truly. And that gives out of everyday life a greater pleasure, which you wouldn't have because you haven't developed that faculty without exercising it through observation of good paintings.
So the arts deal with eternal things, with the universal things that man never gets beyond them. Each generation should should grow as Gilbert motivating from dealing with the Greeks' contribution to the world. We start from abysmal ignorance as children to the enlightenment of the greatest thinkers of the age. So it's a greater truth. So in a real sense, it's very odd. And most painting has been practiced for centuries on the earth. It wasn't until the last 100 years that the dominating descriptive power reached its fullest understanding and also in practice. Now we've got a very rich language in color. The Impressionists use it to express visual phenomena. In the landscape painting were the ones that really did it. And now it's affected not only indoor painting or landscape, but all painting. Indoors, a figure as well as out. What is the purpose of the art in society? When we have an answer to that, that's a philosophical one, then you know what techniques to teach. But they've turned it around. They're turning techniques, but learning languages, and they've got nothing to say with them. And this is the dilemma that they're in. And the first thing that realistic painting should tell the story of is the light scheme in which these things are seen, which all objects are seen. This holds true indoors as well as outdoors. That is modern art. That is modern expression. This which deals with the reality. When the sun is out, the indoor color is entirely different than on a gray day when the sun is in. It's the dominating thing in visual observation. The first thing man made a line and he filled it with color. Now we start with the color, then make the shape, and the edges is the last thing we worry about.
Painting is simply arresting some effect of nature, holding it before man. So there it is for eternity, as long as the painting lasts, for you to share the delight of the visual experience the painter had. Let's call it philosophy, but a belief of the goodness of man, his love for each other, his love for the earth that he lives upon, from which we come, to which we go. And like Hawthorne said, let's add something to the sum total of beauty to the world. I'm not going to add to the bankruptcy of things. I believe in America being full of wonderful people with great goals, but they don't have a voice in things. Real America isn't heard. These boys and girls that are here, they're the cream. They're what I consider they're the cream on which if my little effort, my puny effort, if I can instill them the love of what I believe so much, if I can instill them the willingness to fight for it, that is in producing beautiful work and having this fortitude to stand up against all the idiocies, then I failed whatsoever. I'd like to believe them. This is the horizon. These are the horizons that American youth is looking for. It's leadership about great ideas. What are they? Who are they? But where are these? I challenge anybody to debate on this matter.
Painting should deal with universal things that everybody can understand. The thing that distinguishes a civilized man from a savage or an animal is exactly that which the arts deal with. And the arts deal with the human souls communicating with each other and understanding what the past believed in. And actually, the arts deal with the very essence of human faith and love.
To the painter's eye, he gets educated through the painting which the painter's done. That's the way it works. That's the function of a painter, to teach people to see that truth. And then you arrest it. A painting is nothing but a still picture of some phenomenon of nature that thrilled.
It was something that they had a kick about. That's what a painting is. Someone had such enthusiasm about a view they saw, but they felt it so deeply they wanted to register it first of all for themselves, and because they had that great enthusiasm, it becomes a landmark of human visual experience if it's on a high order of perception.
That sort of thing that children have. They really get excited about things, of what they're doing, and this sort of thing should be developed in grown people. When that's not there anymore, that excitement of discovery, then we become set in our ways and we develop formulas from which there's no life in them. And most education today squelches that creative desire, this creative idea, if you like to put it that way. Creation is a matter of being fresh in your vision, and not the matter of putting down things that follows. The desire of loving the truth more and getting excitement in painting are the visual beauty of the world.
And when the arts don't serve the purpose of making man a part of the rhythm of the visual world, if the painting doesn't play its proper purpose, and the human beings don't love what we call by love means understand the reality, the visual world that the good Lord gave us, as the Christians say, the paradise, which is a Persian word for the garden. If we don't love this garden, how the hell do we expect to go into paradise after we're dead? God is not going to give any Christian a chance of the entrance into paradise if he doesn't appreciate the one that he's got right under his nose. The painter is the vehicle and the priest through which he learns to see. He's the teacher of mankind to see this wonder. And that maybe to some people doesn't mean anything. But the best way to find that out is to blind yourself. And you find often in newspaper clippings when people suddenly gotten sight back. How wonderful is whatever they look upon. There's nothing unimportant. Hawthorne put it so beautifully. Everything under light is beautiful. But it's true. The charm, the enchantment of human vision, this is what poetry deals with in color and shape and then line.
It deals with eternal things of human relationship. From now until doomsday, as long as man lives on the earth, God help us if he doesn't love the beauty of a spring day and enjoys being in it.
The thing that makes visual art trancing is the constant change from one light scheme to another. Sometimes it's very dramatic. When it's dramatic, you can see it. You can see the importance of it furthermore. If you wake up early in the morning and you could sit in the same window and watch it and remember every change, and or like a camera, click it at every so many intervals, and then look at them after you got the print of it, you'd be surprised not having changed the pattern, how the color scheme would be entirely different. Well, that's the core of visual life, and that's the core of what painters should deal with primarily and first of all. Monet did exactly that. He took a series of haystacks and painted them in different light schemes, so you wouldn't be diverted from the local color and also the pattern itself. He wanted to teach man. He taught himself first. He was the first one that realized that different hours could be registered through different color combinations, and that's what it's all about. See? That's realism. And it's not the form at all.
With the enchanting visual aspect of nature, in a foggy morning, if you've ever been here in New England in the fall, you see the veils of fog laying in the valleys. You hardly see a tree. You hardly see a thing. But it's enchanting. Well, even the Chinese noticed that in their in centuries ago when they got a mountain suddenly appears but out of some clouds. Well, we see it here. If you're too dumb to see it, and if you don't think that's of any value, God help you. He doesn't love the richness of the summer with its fruit, the peace of fall after the vegetables and things are stored, and you have a celebration and glorify this event. I remember one of the loveliest things of that kind was a draftsman by the name of Stephen Crane in England, and he made a frieze celebrating the fall with girls, women, and men in the frieze dancing, just like people, peasants do. There's a help people in the field. I know we did in Illinois when we got the corn in and the wheat all in the barns. They had through a party, and we had a lot of fun. We had some beer, and women cooked wonderful meals, and we sat around and boasted and kidded each other and had really fun together. And then this was celebrated by Stephen Crane in a kind of a frieze. And that's the kind of things to celebrate. Those are the eternal things. They all shared it together. And then in order to do that, you've got to get busy and study how to see and do it on a much higher level. Otherwise, it's foolish. And you're foolish if you think that you should get response from people. But it depends on what level of what your goal is. The great people, the people who are really interested in living, what they try to do is to grow and keep growing to the end of their lives. Painting and study of nature's visual phenomena has kept me sane, I think. Given me a lot of delight, selfish delight in a way. It's the delight that other people share and want.